What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dorm Debate podcast. Week 8 is in the books. We are at the midway point for the NFL season. It went by fast, folks. It went by really, really fast. We got a special episode for you guys. We're going to be doing mid-season awards. We're going to be doing Coach of the Year, MVP, Rookie of the Year. We're going to get into our first two topics, which are going to be on the Week 8 games, Giants-Buccaneers. It was a close one. Many people thought that it was going to be Buccaneers by a landslide, but with the Giants and Daniel Jones surprising a lot of people, they came back and just narrowly lost, just narrowly, by missing a 2-point conversion that, in my opinion, was pass interference. I don't know. They threw a flag for a reason. I think it was pass interference. We got John here, a Giants fan, to tell you more about that and back me up. But I want to get into some stats from the game. Daniel Jones didn't have his best game, but also wasn't terrible. 256 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Not really much there. He didn't carry the team too much. Did have a perfect pass to Golden Tate to narrowly tie the game until a 2-point conversion. And the Buccaneers did really well. Brady had no interceptions, 2 touchdowns, and that's basically it. Mike Evans a touchdown, Gronk a touchdown. John, I want to throw it to you here. You're a Giants fan. Were you expecting a lot from this game? And with that, with how close it came, did you think it was pass interference?
Well, first off, I want to say that I got a microphone. So now that it took me long enough, but now I hopefully sound better than in podcast past. And if you watch our TikTok and my weekly picks, I'm sorry about AJ Green. I'm also very disappointed. So I'll try to do better next week. That was one of my only misses. So I'll get back on track for you. But going back to the Giants and Bucks, a lot of people were expecting this to be a blowout, like you said, Jared, but I knew it was going to be closer than people thought. The Giants defense has played well this year. I mean, the offense hasn't been amazing, but the defense has played well. So I knew it was going to be relatively close. I didn't think that the Giants were going to be up whatever it was, 14-6, 17-6, whatever it was. I don't know. But I mean, I was expecting it to be pretty close. And then the Bucks come all the way back. The Giants get one last drive, and Daniel Jones drops back on the 2-point conversion. And he should have thrown it right away. He had Dion Lewis. I don't know. He drops back. He's staring at Lewis, and then he just waits, and then he throws it. And the safety gets there first. I do think it was pass interference. They threw the flag. They talked about it for what it seemed like 20 minutes. And we all saw the replay multiple times, and it wasn't clear cut. It wasn't like, oh, that's 100%. Like in real time, it's tough to see. But in replay, you do see that he did hit him before the ball got there. And obviously, threw the flag. They discussed it for 10 minutes, got to see the replay 5 times, and still didn't confirm it. I don't know why. I guess the Buccaneers have to win. Anyway, we'll get a top 5 pick, so it doesn't matter too much. But Daniel Jones in this game he's literally the definition of average. Like the Golden Tate throw was a great throw. I mean, it was a great catch by Tate, but he was overthrowing. Oh my gosh.
So many players overthrown.
There were so many players overthrown. And then there was one where Slayton, okay, these Buccaneers, if anybody from any other team that's playing the Buccaneers the rest of the way is listening to this podcast, please go run routes for your wide receivers where they do a slant and go. These Buccaneers cornerbacks were jumping every slant and go. I've never seen cornerbacks do it like this much. Every time Slayton would go on a slant and then he would go straight and he'd be wide open. And Daniel Jones is staring at the other side of the field. I'm like, and they literally try to cut off every slant. So run a slant and go on these guys. They're not amazing. You can beat them. Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean, they're good, but they're beatable. And the Giants' offensive line played really well. You saw what the defensive line did to the Packers, and the Giants were able to pretty much stifle them. Daniel Jones threw 250 yards. So, I mean, I don't have too much. I mean, I hope the Giants would have won that game, but it's not a big deal because the Bucs are a really good team, but it should have been pass interference. But it shouldn't have came down to that. Daniel Jones overthrew a lot of players, missed a lot of throws.
I think it's safe to say that now the two best teams in the NFC East are the Eagles and the New York Giants. I mean, the New York Giants put up 23 points against a pretty decent, I would say, Bucs defense. So I think, it's going to come down to the Giants and the Eagles. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if they played each other yet, but if they do, that's definitely going to be a match to look out for.
What about
even though they lost?
What about the Washington football team? I'd argue that they're better than the Giants.
Yeah, I'd rank them higher too.
The Washington football team?
Well, the Giants beat them, but I think, the
1
Giants
point
is so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the Washington football team will be able to stay consistent. Even though they beat the Cowboys, what do I know? I don't think they'll be able to be consistent. I think it comes down to the, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Daniel Jones. He's starting to play like a pretty good quarterback, like franchise quarterback. He knows what he's doing. He's more comfortable now. And the funny thing is, he doesn't even have Saquon yet. So wait till he has Saquon. He's already comfortable now. Saquon's good. I think they're going to have a really good offense next year. And so I think it's going to come down to the Eagles and the Giants. In terms of the Bucs, from an individual talent perspective, their best receiver, I would say Mike Evans in the last game, he only had a total of 55 yards. That's unacceptable. That's unacceptable, especially against the Giants. That's unacceptable. And so people wondered, do they really need Antonio Brown? Well, here's your answer. I mean, you saw it in the game. They need a receiver that can separate himself and always be open, somebody that Tom Brady can always rely on. And third down situations, he knows for a fact this guy's going to be open. I don't think you have that in Mike Evans. 5 receptions for 55 yards. I mean, he had a touchdown, but 55 yards against the Giants, that's really sad. Antonio Brown would have torched the Giants and had over 100 yards. So people say Mike Evans is good. He's better than average, but when we're talking about elite receivers, in my opinion, he's not part of the conversation.
Oh, so that's you got to hold up there.
I mean,
come on.
I'd say he's one of the top ones.
Yeah.
Maybe not top
I mean, maybe he's injured.
10.
Maybe he's not 100%. Don't get me wrong. He's not 100%. So maybe he's not.
This year he's not top 10 because he's been injured. His ankle has been
injured. Yeah.
But I agree with Jonathan that they do need Antonio Brown. And if you're a fantasy owner and you're listening right now, don't be scared to start Antonio Brown this week against New Orleans because New Orleans has a great run defense. So they're going to stifle Ronald Jones and Fournette, and Brady's going to have to throw. And Godwin had surgery on his broken finger, so who knows if he's going to play. Evans is banged up, so his ankle, he's not practicing fully. The only receiver that's practicing fully this week is Antonio Brown. So Brady's going to get a lot of reps with him. They're going to be able to create plays for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if he had over 100 yards and a touchdown because did you see what Brady and Brown did in their first game together when they played the Dolphins? He had over 50 yards, I don't know. He had in the first drive, he was targeted 5 times and he got a touchdown. So Brady's not scared to go to him. He's not nervous, is he going to catch it? Is he going to get separation? He trusts in this guy. And if he trusts him. Only healthy receiver in practice, they're going to get work together.
Yeah, I think Mike Evans is a great receiver and Godwin's a good one too. But that separation between the first and the second, and then you add injuries to it, it's kind of big. So when you add Antonio Brown, I think they do need him. And if he's back to maybe not what he was, but if they get that separation, I think it's opened up a lot of doors for Tampa Bay. But talking about the Giants game, after watching that, there was 2 things that stood out for me. One is that, the Buccaneers have gaps, that there are chinks in the armor that they have to address. And it came up again, one of the ways when Brady was on the Patriots was getting pressure on him. And the Giants defense is underrated, I think. They have a really good defense. And getting to Brady, making them throw a pass, you saw how close it was. I don't think anyone wanted it to be that close. And the second conclusion I saw is honestly, Daniel Jones decided that game. The Giants defense was playing so well. I never gave up in giving that offense a chance. And watching Daniel Jones, I can see. I wouldn't say he's an average quarterback, but I can see why people want to keep him and make him the franchise quarterback, and I can see why people think he's terrible and they want to get rid of him because he had a lot of bad throws, but then he had some. He made the ones that needed. Watching that final drive where he completely converted 2 fourth downs, I believe, at minimum, maybe the third, but he's clutch. Like he got the passes he needed when he needed them. The problem is that he's in that position because of the bad passes throughout the game. I think he has potential if he patches up those works. But watching that, it was kind of, I think no one expected to be that close. The defense kept them in it, and if they just didn't make mistakes, I think the Giants would have beat the Bucks. No one would have seen it. I think the Giants are underrated. I don't know if I'd say they're the second in the division. I don't want to underestimate the Washington football team with Ron Rivera and that defense they got over there. The only question mark is the quarterback and maybe the run game a little bit, so that's fair. But the Giants right now with what they got going on, I think they could. Honestly, it's kind of it depends who you ask because aside from their first game, all the games were within 10 points. So, that's not a coin toss, but they were close, So we'll see, especially as the NFC East, they play, I think they play Eagles again, play some other, we're not the best division, I'll admit, but we'll see as they go along. But I think the Eagles have the division probably, but I don't want to underestimate the Washington football team or the Giants because it's literally a one or two game difference.
Yeah, watching the Giants Monday night was shocking to me. The Giants are so good, and I wish Barkley wasn't injured because if Barkley was there, it'd be such an amazing game to watch. I have a stat here that they showed very late in the game. I don't know if you guys caught this, and it's Daniel Jones by time to throw. And when he had less than 2.5 seconds, he was 16 for 24, 158 yards, and a touchdown. No interceptions. So when he has less time, when he had more than 2.5 seconds, he was 9 for 17, only 98 yards, a touchdown, but the 2 interceptions were during that time, which was confusing to me because watching the game, I noticed that when he had more time in the pocket, he was able to make those throws. But the stats show different. And I can only imagine that this means that, when his first target isn't there, that's when he starts to panic. That's when he starts to look around and scramble. And he's a really good runner, but he's a bad scrambler. He's a very underrated athlete, but his scrambling ability is horrendous. But yeah, the missed deep balls were huge for Daniel Jones. And they weren't just a little bit open. Some players were like wide open. He just got a little too happy and overthrew them. But in the beginning of the season, we were talking about like Daniel Jones. Jonathan, I know you said this, probably you said you backed up later saying Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. But like if he's bad this year, like are you thinking about drafting a quarterback? You have Justin Fields, you have Trevor Lawrence. I think after this game, you start to take a look at those prospects. I know it sounds crazy, but he was average in this game, and this is one of like his better games. He turns the ball over way too many times to be a franchise quarterback, and that's what scares me the most. And if you're looking at the Giants and you have a second overall pick and Justin Fields is available, Justin Fields right now is the best college quarterback in the nation, even with Trevor Lawrence. Justin Fields statistically is the best college quarterback.
So was Dwayne Haskins.
So is Dwayne
Exactly.
Haskins. But
that's my point.
They're two different players, though. Dwayne Haskins was a pocket guy. Jalen Hurts is an athlete. He's more of like the size of a Russell Wilson.
Ohio State is good at producing quarterbacks for the college setting. All their college quarterbacks are really good, but once they get to the NFL, they just struggle. And so I'm not too confident in Justin Fields being successful in the Giants, at least. I think what they have in Daniel Jones is pretty good, given that Saquon is hurt. So they're asking more with him right now. He has to throw more. Once Saquon gets in there, then they can mix it up. Daniel Jones can throw more quality passes. Then Saquon can get some quality runs, and it will be a perfect balance next year. But right now, he has to do a lot because Saquon's not there. So you're seeing a lot of mistakes from this young quarterback. But believe me, I'm seeing him play, and I think he has the keys to making this franchise go far and do well in the next few years.
I mean,
Even when
I see.
oh, you're good.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I just wanted to add, like, well, when did Barkley get injured? Because they were still the few games in, and they'd only won one of them, I think.
Yeah, and he turned the ball over then too. I mean, he's had a turnover.
They would have
But
been.
the thing
They
is
didn't win
that-
until week 6. They didn't get their first win until week 6.
The
So
thing is that he's had a different coach, like basically every year. Like he's
Yeah.
had
That's true.
so much. He's had new coordinators. Like give him a full
He's trying to
season
learn.
with Barkley under
Yeah.
one coordinator. Like he hasn't had that. So like give him
no,
that.
yeah, I don't think you should get rid of them, but I think it's a fair thought, Jared, that you
Yeah,
have.
no.
Because I mean, isn't it is it Belichick that's like the idea is that you draft the best available, not for need. Like if that's an option, you kind of maybe you get the Kyler Murray, who's the other quarterback? I'm forgetting his
Josh
name.
Rosen.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know. If you find someone who's a perfect fit, maybe you take a risk like that.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
he
not
can
saying you
develop.
commit.
Yeah. I think he could be it. It's just I feel like we're developing quarterbacks so early. Like I think that they might be anomalies, but I think of Rodgers and Mahomes who sat on the bench for a little bit before they became starters, and where they are now. It makes you wonder if maybe getting these rookies in earlier isn't helping their development. And because then, like Jared, you're saying, maybe he sees the progression. If it's not there, he tries to make something happen beyond what like a wiser quarterback will just throw it away. Little things like this where you got the interceptions. We have more time when there's nothing there. That's kind of, I don't know. I might just be thinking out loud, but I was just wondering because you see like some of these other quarterbacks have been in the league for a few years, but started they're mixed ratio of success. So I mean, we'll see, but maybe.
Yeah. I like Daniel Jones and I want him to succeed. It's just that's one of like the red flags for me is the turnovers. I mean, if you look at like Mahomes, you look at Wilson, Rodgers, they don't throw interceptions, they don't turn the ball over as much. That's like I know I'm not trying to compare him to any of those guys, but I'm just saying like as a great quarterback, you can't turn the ball over.
Yeah. Wait, who has the most interceptions out of all quarterbacks this year?
All right.
This year?
Carson Wentz.
All right.
Yeah, and he's not bad. He just has a lot of
Jones is close
interceptions.
though.
Yeah, Jones is actually close. Yeah.
He's one behind actually. I think it's a
really?
fair point though. I get your point though. Yeah.
But as far as the Buccaneers, I wouldn't look at this game and be scared as a Buccaneers fan. I think they were just caught looking ahead to the Saints game. They thought this was kind of a walk in the park, and Daniel Jones and everybody just came out guns a-blazing, and they just got caught looking ahead. I think it's just that simple. They'll be ready for the Saints game. That'll be an interesting game to watch. Another huge game that we had, Steelers versus Ravens. Now, John and I picked Ravens, and Jonathan and Caleb picked the Steelers, and the Steelers came out on top. They're still undefeated, 7-0, folks, the only undefeated team. Steelers came out on top, 28-24. And if we look at the stats, it was not good for Lamar, folks. 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 2 interceptions and 2 lost fumbles, totaling to 4 turnovers for the Ravens and just for Lamar Jackson alone. So not a good showing for him. He had a pick 6 to start the game. It was not a good look for him in a big game, in a divisional game that most people had them winning. Now people know the Steelers are for real. I think that is the big takeaway of this week. The Steelers are for real. The defense is legit. The offense is legit. Jonathan, you did some analysis on this game for our TikTok. I want to start off with you. Why did the Ravens lose? I mean, this seemed like a game that they should have won, and Lamar just kind of collapsed. What happened?
Yeah, well, I feel like the Ravens coaching staff, was trying to do too much. They were trying to be too creative. Greg Roman is their offensive coordinator, and apparently he has like a big, huge playbook that he carries around. He's really smart offensive mind, but you got to stick to the team's identity when you're exploring different plays. Why would you go in an empty set where you're going to force Lamar to throw the ball on a crucial third down? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We all know he can't throw that ball that well. I'm not talking about the pick six play, but another play, he missed a wide open tight end. I think it was Andrews. He missed a wide open tight end. He threw it to like right there, and Mark Andrews tried to catch it with one hand. He's struggling to throw. So I think Baltimore, I mean, they're a great team, but they need to stick to the team's identity. More play action. I think, you need to try to, fool at least one safety or something through play action. That way you can give Lamar a better chance of, making an open shot. But that position they put him in terms of lining up an empty on multiple occasions, it wasn't just that first drive, but that next drive, they tried it again on 3rd and 7. If you go back and watch the game, they tried it again. And that's just confusing to me. I think Greg Roman, he's trying to create this, really great offense. He probably wants to be head coach soon. He's trying to make himself look good, but just stick to the plan, stick to the team's true identity. Stop trying to do too much. You have a great team. Just stick to those few plays you run. You guys were successful last year doing it. He just keeps on trying to expand the plays and what you're supposed to do. But if it doesn't fit the team's identity, the offense's identity, then don't try to do it. And from a Steelers perspective, the first half, they were trying to run the ball, getting pistol a lot, trying to line up, some weird formations and giving it to Connor, and it was unsuccessful for the most part. Then second half, and so Big Ben just picked the Ravens defense apart, and probably the Ravens defense, the secondary is probably not used to, going against a quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger on a day-to-day basis, because they probably scout against Lamar, who can't throw, so they don't really have enough reps to be able to assimilate a good quarterback that will throw the ball every single play. So they struggle with passing defense. We saw it in the Chiefs, and we saw it with the Steelers. So it was a really close game, but I think the Ravens, they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, but not to take anything away from the Steelers. I mean, they're a great team. Their offense looks pretty unstoppable right now. So we'll see how the season plays out and how the division plays out. But the Steelers are definitely the favorite. People are saying Ravens and Chiefs. Well, the Steelers made a statement, so people need to start thinking the Steelers and Chiefs for the AFC Championship.
Yeah, the Steelers, I was surprised that they were able to put up as many points as they did against a Ravens defense that was at home and had 2 weeks to prepare. So I was a little surprised by that. But like Jonathan said, they weren't sticking to their identity. I know it was 3rd and 6, but they didn't really go for it that many times on 4th down. Like in a game like this, it's close and you're going to have to score points. So you should go for it on 4th down. And like, if you run it 4 times with Lamar, like give it to your running back twice and Lamar twice, you're not going to be able to stop Lamar. Like on the 3rd and 6, run it with Lamar. He's going to get at least 3-4 yards. Then it's a 4th and 2. Run it with Lamar. Most times he's going to get it. It's almost impossible. I mean, I saw replays of Steelers defense huddling on the sideline and TJ Watt yelling at the coaches and the coaches yelling back, and nobody knows how to stop this guy because nobody can tackle him. Like when he does a read option, no matter what he chooses, how are you supposed to tackle this guy? He's the most elusive guy we've seen since Michael Vick. So like, have trust in him that he's going to be able to get it done. And you put your trust in his arm rather than his legs. And I didn't see them take too many deep shots. I would have liked them to take a couple more deep shots, because force those safeties for the Steelers to play double high. They were playing mostly single high, which made it harder to run and harder for Lamar to squeeze those passes to Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. Send Hollywood Brown on a streak. They should send him on a streak every possession. They should look at him. He should be the first read at least once per possession. just to see what the Steelers are doing and see if you could take a shot and keep them honest. So I think it is a little early, but it is time to start thinking about the Ravens, not winning the division and, just settling for a wild card where they won't be at home.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see with the Ravens. I mean, looking at the whole game, Steelers versus Ravens, I feel like, to be honest, I mean, Lamar didn't play well. Some debate there. I think it says more about the Steelers, to be honest. Like, it's not so much focus on the Ravens, but rather the Steelers are that good. Because we spent a lot of the offseason talking about, the Chiefs and the Ravens and these kind of expected winners. And I don't think a lot of people were talking about the Steelers. Just like we kind of forgot about them because Ben was hurt for a season. I think when I see the Steelers, I've watched a few of their games, and they are probably, in my opinion, one of the most well-rounded teams in the NFL right now. The defense is cutting; it's killer with T.J. Watt and other players behind them. They're just watching that defense. It's such a cohesive unit that is shutting down these great teams. Like they haven't had the toughest schedule yet, so maybe 7-0 is a little deceiving. But they did beat the Titans when they were hot, and they just beat the Ravens. It's a disturbing pattern with if I'm a Ravens fan, when you go up. We talked about this with the Chiefs, where the Ravens go up high against lesser teams, but when it comes to real competition, it's tough, and it's kind of a tough pattern, which is going to add to the narrative. Not that narrative really matters, but it's add to the narrative that they can't win playoff games. But if this keeps happening against good teams, they'll play the Steelers again in a few weeks. If this happens again, then I think it's real legitimate. Like the mode of play, their means of operation for the Ravens has to be reassessed if these better teams are able to shut down your star quarterback and your defense and all these other facets of your offense if it's so focused on one part of the game, which I think is scrambling. I think Lamar's their guy. There's no debate, but he does have to improve in some areas, and I think better teams take advantage of that. And if the Ravens want to make deeper runs, they got to win these games against better teams. And so both the Steelers and the Ravens have a schedule that's, you could argue based on record isn't that challenging. There might be some upsets, some dark horse games there that are close. But when they meet again, the Steelers might have stretched their lead. So, John, like you said, the Ravens might be looking at a wild card if the Steelers stay all healthy. I feel like if Roethlisberger stays healthy and Watt stays healthy, I think they stand a chance. Because there's been a lot of injuries this season. I mean, I think analytically, according to the metrics, there have been more injuries this season. And it was similar to when I think there was a lockout. They didn't have a practice, that was preseason. There was more injuries that year too. So you might start to see injuries have played a factor, which is why the 49ers, not to go on tangent, but why the 49ers are struggling. Eagles have struggled. But in terms of the Steelers, going back to them, I just think they're legit. If everyone's healthy, everyone does well. I mean, injuries are part of the game, but I think they're one of the top teams to be looking at as the season goes, because their schedule is not that challenging compared to other teams. And the division, they're already had 2 games, I believe, in the division. And Roethlisberger is efficient. He's hitting I think 58% completion rate, something like that. Quarterbacks who are doing that are completing their passes, their clutch. I mean, he's just been a steady hand behind an offense. There's a solid run game behind Connor, and I forgot the backup, but the run,
Bobby Snow,
yeah,
Benny Snow.
Basically, they have the running backs, a solid running back, and they have good receivers. And Juju, Deontay Johnson, Claypool starting to show. I mean, don't look at their fantasy numbers the past 2 weeks or the last 2, but they're at least some. You know what I mean? It was like they have a well-rounded offense as well. So I think they're legit.
Yeah. Man, I've been a big fan of the Ravens. And if you follow the podcast, I've picked them twice to win these big games, and they lost both. I've lost all faith in this Ravens team, and I'm not even exaggerating. I'm not overreacting.
But they played 2 of the top teams in the whole league. They played
they did play the top
Steelers
teams.
and the Chiefs. So
they played the Steelers.
And it was close.
They played the Steelers. They played the Chiefs. Let's see who else they played. Browns. They're the only over 500 team. They played the Texans, Washington, Bengals, Eagles. This team doesn't get challenged much. And the 2 times that they do, they lost. And I know the score looks close, but the Ravens played so bad in that. And that may be a good sign that they played so bad that they only lost by 4 points. But man, I backed them up twice and they let me down. And Lamar is not looking good. It's after his MVP season and he's not looking good. And I'd be scared if I was a Ravens fan. I'd be really scared because I think Super Bowl is absolutely out of the question. I think conference championship totally out of the question. You're looking at making the wild card and barely winning that game, barely winning that. And then they'll have the weight off their shoulders of not winning a playoff game. But man, they're just a weird team. I don't really know how to pinpoint it, but when their offense doesn't work, it's a mess. It is an absolute mess. They ran the ball really well with Dobbins. So they didn't have Mark Ingram this game. Dobbins showed up 113 yards. He showed up to play. And like Jonathan said, in crucial times, they go empty set and take him off the field. That's not what you do. Like you keep your running back who's been running over 100 yards this game, you keep him in. That's I don't know. That it just seems like I think Jonathan said it, they were just like the coaches were just outsmarting themselves. Like they're beating themselves up. When it goes to the Steelers, there's nothing bad I can say. I mean, they're undefeated. They right now can't be stopped. Offense can't be stopped. I thought that they would lose a step with Devin Bush being gone, and the next guy up is just even better. Like they really got better without Devin Bush. It's crazy to say that, but if you look at the Ravens, I'm scared of their next schedules coming up. They got at the Colts, it's a tough defense. At the Patriots, another tough defense. Then they got Titans, tough defense, and then they're back at it at Pittsburgh. Like this team has to win at least one of those to have some sort of mental victory and like something going into the playoffs because they're definitely going to make a wild card. I think that's a must because the Browns I don't trust. I do not trust Baker Mayfield at all. So I think they make a wild card, but you gotta beat one of these tough defenses then you play the Cowboys after the Steelers.
Okay.
They're gonna crush them.
Win. Yeah.
Yeah. But that stretch where you have Colts, Patriots, Titans, Steelers, that's tough, man. That's really, really tough. And one of those games you gotta win. You gotta win one of those. But yeah, I mean, not much to say about the Steelers. They're undefeated, and kudos to them. Any other thoughts on this game?
Well, I'd just add, you guys can hear me, right? Just to make
Mhm.
sure I'm on the headphones. And I noticed this after I drank it. By the way, this is sparkling apple juice. It's not anything else. I'm pretty tired. The one thing I will say, I feel like just to not beat a dead horse, but I think the Patriots game isn't that they lose that. That's probably an easy win for the Ravens if they lose that. That's concerning. I think the Colts are 5-2, Titans are 5-2 right now, and then they're playing the Steelers again. So I think for me, those are the three games I'm looking at for tough teams. Because right now the Patriots are 2-5. So if I'm looking at tough teams that like we're talking about this thing where they can't beat better teams,
Yeah.
the Colts game becomes very important for the wild card position because you got the Dolphins creeping up at 4 wins. The Colts are at 5-2, tied with the Titans, and that competition between both those teams, Colts and Titans, is going to be intense because they're going to want to secure a home playoff thing. So Ravens have to win, I think, one of these 3 games to have a comfort for the wild card for one of the wild card spots.
100% agree. We're gonna move on to our special segment of the podcast, folks. In honor of election week, we had a little bit of little polls ourselves. We had some polls that I put up on TikTok that our fans answered. If you don't follow us already, it's at Dorm Debate Podcast. over on TikTok, and we basically did some mid-season NFL awards. The first one that I put up was Coach of the Year, Mike Tomlin or Cliff Kingsbury. Now, the crew hasn't seen what the results were of the polls, so I'm going to tell them right now and get their live reaction. Coach of the Year, 81% said Mike Tomlin.
Of course.
19% said Cliff Kingsbury. If we want to get technical, it says that 1,203 for Mike Tomlin, 289 for Cliff Kingsbury.
Wow. Okay.
We have
So-
that many people voting.
So yeah, great job going out to the polls and voting.
If only voting in the election was that easy.
Yeah, just click a button.
Or that's what all those signs about voting was for our podcast.
Yeah. I had a feeling it would be Mike Tomlin. They're undefeated, so you got to give it to him.
Exactly.
But it can't be understated. Cliff Kingsbury is doing a phenomenal job in Arizona. He's really sped up that rebuilding process by getting Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. So I that's why I decided to throw him up on there. Are there any other coaches that you feel could contend for Coach of the Year? Any teams that surprised you?
I think mid-season, as of right now, I'm looking at kind of a dark horse that nobody's really talking about, Kevin Stefanski. He's the coach of the Cleveland Browns. He came over as the offensive coordinator from the Minnesota Vikings. And I mentioned him on previous podcasts, but he implements this strong running game scheme where he doesn't throw the ball a whole lot, which is perfect for Baker Mayfield. And I think that he's put Baker in the best position to succeed. And they were 5-2. They lost this past week. They're 5-3, but he's been doing really well. He got Chubb involved. Chubb got hurt. Hunt steps up right into the starting role. And their game hasn't lost a beat. And now Odell is gone. And I think he's going to be able to overcome that because his scheme accommodates any receiver. And Rashard Higgins and Baker Mayfield have a pretty good connection. So now that Chubb comes back after their bye this week, I really like the Browns, and I think that they could definitely get a playoff spot in the AFC because I don't think the Patriots are going to get back into it. So I think that there's a spot there for the Browns to take. And I think right now it has to be noticed that Kevin Stefanski is really elevating this team. Last year they had 20.9 points per game, and so far this game they have 25.8 points per game. So 5 points per game more this year. And you have arguably a defensive MVP on the other side of the ball with Myles Garrett. So really, I think Stefanski has something to say for himself.
For me, good.
You go, Jonathan. You go.
Yeah, for me, I would say the best coach. Like you can tell a good coach from how close the games are and how many games are able to close out.
Please don't say Mike McCarthy. I'll get so mad.
No. Pete Carroll. If
Yeah.
you notice,
A lot of people-
Seahawks games
no.
have been
A
close.
lot of people
No, a lot of
commented
Seahawks-
Pete Carroll. Actually, they
Yeah.
were
A lot of
No.
Seahawks games have been close.
Dude,
And
you've seen
in those crucial moments.
He's supposed to be a
people-
defensive coach. His defense is embarrassing. It's the worst thing I've ever seen.
In
Dude,
the
have you
crucial
seen the
moments,
Cowboys?
Exactly. In those crucial moments, that's when you can tell a great
No,
coach.
that's not him.
It's
That's
like a
not
game of
him.
chess.
It's all Russell Wilson in those crucial moments. It's not him. He just lets Russ go and do whatever he wants. And Russ is just amazing.
No,
Carroll's just
it's
doing
not
his
that easy.
thumb on the sideline.
No. It's not that easy. Look at Lamar Jackson. He's probably the greatest athlete. You can't
even
you need a good
compare.
coach around you.
You can't compare Lamar to Russell Wilson. They're on completely different levels.
Well, I think the games that are close, and they're able to, end up winning, like the Patriots, the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the Seahawks and Dolphins, the Vikings, the Cardinals. Well, they lost that one, but the 49ers, right? I think a lot of the games this season have been close, and in those crucial moments, that's when you can tell who the greatest coaches are, because they're able to have sharp minds and make the best decisions to make their team win in terms of picking the right plays, getting in the right coverage. I think all that goes into play to determine the best coach, not just whoever wins by the most, right? And so from that aspect, since I think the Seahawks won a lot of close games this season, I think Pete Carroll has to be up there. And so yes, Russell Wilson's a great athlete. He's probably still an MVP frontrunner, but it's a both an offensive and defensive game. Yes, the defense has sucked, but when it comes time to win a game, most of the time this season they've been able to deliver, and that's great coaching. That's great coaching. They know what to expect. They've been playing, the entire game, all 4 quarters, right? Then when it comes down to like the last 2 minutes, they're like, all right, they've been running this, get on this defense, they're not going to score. Or on offense, hey, their defense has been running, been in this coverage the whole game, run these plays and win the game. That's important for a coach to be able to do. And Pete Carroll has been able to do that most of the season.
I would say I'd kind of have to disagree with both of you guys, but also agree with the people on this one. My first thought that comes to Coach of the Year is Mike Tomlin. It's an easy one considering he's the last undefeated. Now we're mid-season, right? This is the mid-season assessment of who we think could.
Mhm.
Steelers, again, their schedule's not that difficult in my opinion. I mean, there's always surprises, but there's that, as well as considering last season without Big Ben, they almost made it to the playoffs without Big Ben. Like, who was their quarterback after that incident? Like,
Mason Rudolph and then
Mike Tomlin,
Hodges.
right?
Duck,
yeah,
Duck Hodges.
right. I love that name. Oh my gosh, it's like I don't know, it's like a superhero origin name. But
That's
I don't know where that came from.
That's the argument against Tomlin to be Coach of the Year is that he really hasn't changed anything from last year. Their defense was still really good, and last year with Duck Hodges, you were close to making the playoffs. So the only thing that changed was that you now have Big Ben.
I'd give him credit for the undefeated and the fact that I look at their receiving core, Juju, Claypool, Johnson, and then they have who's the tight end? I don't know why
Eric.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, and then James Conner, then all these all-stars showing up on defense. Either he's really good at picking up these players that they kind of go not under the radar, but he's just good at collecting talent, but also developing it. So it's not like maybe I think it did change year to year. Like you look at some of the players he used to have, Le'Veon Bell, they were good with him, and then Antonio Brown is a great example. Like aside from off the field issues with those two players, Tomlin has shown that he can develop players. He's a defensive-minded coach. So I think he's probably the favorite. The second name that I've seen, I did a little research for this. The second name that I saw show up a lot that I didn't even think of was Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins. That team was 5-11 last year and 4th in the division. Right now they're second in the division with 4-3. Okay. The reason I think that's kind of more impressive considering how bad they were last year, and that they're almost going to surpass their total wins at this point midseason. It's progress, and that they're in contention for the division win. The biggest question mark that I will see is the decision to replace Fitzpatrick. If Tua comes in and wins out, and it is the stuff, it'll show that coaching wise, it made the right call, and they maybe win the division. I think you give it to him, even if Mike Tomlin, unless he goes undefeated, gets more wins than you, because again, the Steelers' schedule isn't that difficult. So I think you have to give credit to a coach who can completely turn around a team in that case, because they've been quietly after there was the year where when the Eagles won, they gave away Ajayi, they gave away all their best players, to the Browns, the receiver, and now that not that long ago, but now they're starting to some teams have been rebuilding for so long, and then the Dolphins are starting to show signs of possibility. I think I'd give a little credit to Brian Flores there, head coach.
That's fair. And I just want to say, I think Tua only scored 1 touchdown last time, right? And the rest was from defense and special teams. So yeah. I just want to let you guys know, if you're at home, don't be deceived.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm wishing him well, but I still don't think he's ready. I still think it was a bad decision, but time will tell.
I feel bad for Fitzpatrick still. So, yeah, we'll see.
I wanted to put on the podcast, but even with that first game, there's just still nothing to really judge. He barely had the ball. They had a punt return, they had a fumble return for a touchdown. Like it was all the defense scoring touchdowns. So
Literally.
yeah, I mean he had a couple throws that were really questionable. But one thing I will say, Tua's deep ball accuracy is very good. It's almost elite with a lot of great quarterbacks. His accuracy, but again, like the game really wasn't on his shoulders. He basically was given a huge lead. So we'll give it some time and then assess Tua later on in the season. Our next one, this one did surprise me. I'm very surprised. Mid-season NFL awards vote defensive player of the year. Okay,
Who were the options?
I put up Aaron Donald and Myles Garrett. Both are sacks leaders. They're tied.
They both have 9 sacks.
Correct, yeah. 66% of the vote said Aaron Donald.
Yep.
Wow.
34% said Myles Garrett. So I go to the comments. First one with 4 likes says, "Why isn't Myles Garrett winning? He is by far better this year. Come on." And that's by Ryan.
I wouldn't say it's by far.
I have to agree with them statistically at this point.
What else? Okay, well they're tied in sacks with 9, but what else? All right.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you right now.
What does he lead more in pressures or
If I
something?
can find this tab. Here it is. So forced fumbles. Myles Garrett has 4, tied for first. And he also has 25 tackles. Now, if you go to Aaron Donald, he has 9 sacks, only, oh, that's weird, only 3 forced fumbles and 25 tackles.
That's almost the same.
Wait.
So the one difference is 1 forced fumble.
I haven't watched enough Browns game to see this, but is Myles Garrett double teamed most of the time? Because Aaron Donald is.
I mean,
I think
team spare
probably both of them. I gotta say, I was doing some research. A lot of the, it's statistically it's tough to tell. For some reason, for whatever reason, fans can decide. A lot of the listings that I saw, at least, were for whatever reason rating Myles Garrett at number 1, Donald at 2. No, that was a lot of what I saw. I don't know why that order, because you're right, the difference isn't that huge. Both players. I mean, I think Donald's the more feared one. Like he's one of the superstars in that Rams defense that we'll talk a lot about. Garrett proving he's worth the money that they're giving him.
Yeah, I would argue. I mean, when I first saw this, I don't know what I voted, but I didn't remember that it was that different. But I would argue that it would be Garrett, because when you look at, I know Donald is always double teamed. Garrett, I think, has been double teamed a few times, but when I watched a few Browns games, he did stand out to me. And the one reason, the sole reason I would give it to Garrett over Donald mid-season is because of their division. Now, when you think of the Rams and who they play the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the 49ers. Now, the 49ers are known to have a good offensive line. They have a good run game. But the Cardinals and the Seahawks, they have horrible offensive lines. Like Kyler and Russ are always scrambling. So it's like Donald, even if he's double teamed there, it's like playing in college. It's not that hard. But like Myles Garrett trying to rush on the Ravens offensive line, who are known for good offensive line and running the football, and the Steelers, who have always had a good offensive line and running the football, and the Bengals, who, granted, they're not great, but they did play them twice. But, Burrow's been pretty good about getting the ball out. So I'd say that they've played pretty good offensive line. They played the Ravens. They played the Steelers. The Raiders have a decent offensive line. Carr was pretty protected against the Chiefs when they beat them. They played the Colts, and the Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Cowboys have one of the best offensive lines in the league when they're healthy, and Washington football team. So I'd give it to Garrett just because of their matchups, and the division they're in is definitely tougher to rush against.
I think that's fair.
I would say, in my opinion, like I said, most of the listings you'll see had Donald and Garrett at the top. I gotta say, I think if we're talking about defensive player of the year, I know I've been talking a lot about the team, the Steelers, but I think it's TJ Watt right now. I've seen watching these games, it's been a while since I've seen a defensive player cause so much disruption for other teams, as well as being in the clutch, as well as crucial in every play. He's somewhere there making a difference. And this, you watch, he's like, I'd say, I don't know if he's the head of the Steelers defense, but he's one of their best players when you watch him. So I got to give it to him. Not that these other guys are, in any way like bad. It's just we're talking about deciding mid-season right now. I got to give it to TJ Watt.
Yeah, some honorable mentions in the comments. We got Buda Baker said Buda Baker has a chance in my eyes.
He's been really good. Buda Baker almost had that pick 6.
Jair Alexander from the Packers.
He's all right, but the Packers defense is just embarrassing too.
Yeah.
And John, you're gonna like this. James Bradbury.
I told you guys. He was good. I was surprised that if Mike Evans didn't have that touchdown, he would have had 5 catches, 50 yards. So Bradbury's pretty good, and he's been playing really well this year. He's definitely the MVP of our defense. So definitely watch out for starting your fantasy receivers, your number 1 against the Giants.
Well, speaking of MVP, that is our next one. Russell Wilson or Patty Mahomes?
Is that the poll you had?
Yeah, this is the poll I had.
Okay.
A unanimous 85% of the vote went to Russell Wilson. And someone commented, why is Mahomes even on here? I'll tell you why.
Ooh.
I had the choice of putting Aaron Rodgers. And after those 2 losses, I don't think that's MVP worthy.
No.
Mahomes, I know he's already won MVP. He has 21 touchdowns, 1 interception, 115 QBR rating. And then Russell Wilson, 26 touchdowns, so 5 more, and then 6 interceptions, 120 QBR rating, and about 100, 200 less yards than Mahomes. So, Russell Wilson's got more touchdowns, better QBR rating, but Mahomes has less interceptions and more yards. So it is a little even, but Russell's having a way better year. I mean, nobody thought that he would have this good of a year. It's just like Mahomes goes under the radar because he had that 50 touchdown season. So anything below that, we're like, down year for Patty Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like what
it's kind of
like what.
No.
Yeah. You got
No,
it.
I'm sorry. I'm saying, yeah, sometimes it's annoying because stats at moments don't tell the full story. Just like in the beginning of the season, when I was like, oh, Dak's the passing leader. And John was like, no. It's because they always have to catch up and win the game. Russell Wilson, most of his games have been close. So he's had
to deal with bad.
He's had to be clutch.
He has a terrible defense.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He has a terrible defense. Yeah, exactly. He has a terrible defense. And then he has some great weapons around him and Lockett and Metcalf.
I mean, when you look at it, he's scoring all these points, and I mean, he's only throwing to Lockett and Metcalf. Literally nobody else on the team is any relevance at all. Literally, when you go to the fantasy and search by wide receivers, it's Lockett, then Ridley, then Metcalf. It's those are the and Russell Wilson's leading all the quarterbacks. So it's what he's doing. No matter which guy it is, one game he's I'm just going to throw to Lockett and he'll be open every time. And one game I'll throw to DK and he'll be open every time. So it's
that's happened last game. Yeah.
And the reason why he earns it over Mahomes, not only because Mahomes has a better defense behind him, but Russell Wilson has played tougher competition. He has a better division, and he is, Mahomes plays the Jets. He plays the Bills. Bad defenses. Bills usually have a good defense, so it's Russell Wilson has definitely had to come up more clutch and try to win these divisional games with all these good defenses. Rams have a pretty good defense with Ramsey and Donald, and the 49ers have a good defense. So
I like the reasons you just said, John, are some of the biggest. That if MVP was a statistical thing, then it would be mathematical. There'd be an equation, and we know each week by week who was leading in this number, and then we know. Like, it's a reason that it's kind of objective. It's a vote. It's not determined just by who has the most yards, who has the most this, that, or that QBR rating. That all matters. But when you're talking about an essence of who's the best player, it's not just in the metrics, like you said, Jonathan, too. And I think Russell Wilson encapsulates that. I would say he's also probably the MVP right now, still midseason. So face tougher division, more competition, as well as that Seattle team is 6-1, and they're not as well rounded as a team like the Chiefs. Like, what's their run game compared to the Chiefs? And other than Russell Wilson's running, scrambling out of the pocket, Russell Wilson this season is willing his team to victories. It's never one guy doing it, but he's just playing in a way that's special. And he might be more efficient. If you look at the yards that he scored, he has less yards, but more touchdowns, might be a testament to efficiency. The more interceptions too. He had 3 against the Cardinals, which was a bad game. There was some mistakes there, but you take those 3 away, which, you really can't, because you have to take the touchdowns away. But that's only 2 more interceptions than Mahomes. I do see the argument with Mahomes, though. It's like Mahomes is having a great year compared to most quarterbacks in the league, but when you compare him to like past Mahomes, he just goes. It's like it's normal for him how good he is. He's second in yards and second in touchdowns. So there's a legitimate argument for Mahomes being MVP. I do see it. It's not as attractive as the way Russell Wilson's doing it when he has less. He doesn't have Metcalf and Lockett. Without that, as well, not as good a team. He doesn't have as good a team overall in the defense as the Chiefs. You consider that, as well as just the consistency of Mahomes. Statistically, yes, but also he is just a special player too. I just, to argue the opposition, I could see Mahomes, depending on how the rest of the season goes, walking away with it. But right now it's Wilson.
Yeah, and I just want to say I personally think it's Mahomes. I think it's just like the NBA, where we know LeBron's the best player every year, but he never wins it. Yes. We all know Mahomes is the best player, but last week he had to sit out, I think, the last quarter. A few days ago, he sat out the last 9 minutes. I know this because I have him in fantasy, and it was annoying. And so, yeah, he should be getting a lot higher numbers, but he just has to sit out because they're trying to protect him. But I think he's the best player in the league.
Yeah, like Wilson's gunning it out to the end, so it's boosting his fantasy. And I have Wilson too, so it's like, well, they win those games, but yeah.
That's also like a good point, because that's an argument you could make for Mahomes. Like, the reason we said that it should be Wilson is because he has a bad defense. He has to overcome that. But we could say Mahomes has a good defense, and the defense scored 2 touchdowns against the Broncos, so Mahomes didn't need to. But if he did, he would have more touchdowns and be closer to the MVP race. So it's like,
they're sitting him because he's too good, and then that's the argument against him for MVP. It's like there's one of these catch 22. He has less yards, like almost 100, about 100 less yards than Russell Wilson. Also, just to add 2 more rushing touchdowns though. So you're right. Mahomes is a special player right now. So it's either one of those 2 guys for sure right now.
I want to shout out R. Albert 8811. He said Kyler Murray. Shout out to you, man. You're the real MVP right there.
Man after Jared's heart.
Maybe not this year, man, but in the next 5 years, you bet Kyler Murray MVP. Got to get those interceptions down.
Yeah.
Our last one was the most intriguing for me to put out, and it was Rookie of the Year. I put Joe Burrow against Justin Herbert.
That's interesting, because that's 2 quarterbacks, but there's been a lot of good rookies this year.
Yeah, I was like, is that all we got?
I mean, we've got.
I didn't vote on that one.
Claypool.
You're telling me a wide receiver is going to win?
It would have to be a running back.
No,
I'm not saying they will, but there could be a case for one of them.
No way.
We'll let you.
These are the top 2 guys. You can't even argue that. You can't even argue Herbert and Burrow. That you can't. It's impossible.
I would argue that.
Tell us.
If Dak was still
Ooh.
playing, CD Lamb would be my pick as of right now. Did you see the amount of targets he was getting per game?
Well, he's not. So
He would have been
okay,
one of the top 5 receivers.
Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. In my eyes, I thought number one pick, Joe Burrow. I thought the swagger, people would favor him a little bit more. He's got one more game under his belt than Herbert, two more wins than or one more win than Herbert. But Herbert with 70% of the vote wins Rookie of the Year, 30% going to Joe Burrow. Now, there are a couple comments that say mid-season, it's Herbert, but I think in the end, it's going to be Burrow. Someone said, no, Kyler Murray.
Was that you?
Someone.
It wasn't me this time.
Are you Albert?
So I had to go to the stats because I really haven't been looking at Herbert's stats too much because I've been trying to be like unbiased and just kind of look at the Chargers games and give a good analysis of it. Herbert's stats, 1,800 yards passing, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 104 passer rating. And then you compare that to Burrow. Burrow has 2,200 passing yards. So that's way more, but only 11 touchdowns to Justin's 15 and 5 interceptions for 91 QBR rating. Burrow does have 2 wins, and Herbert just got his first one against Jacksonville. I'll be honest, Herbert has surprised me. One, with how he came into the league, into his first game, when it was such a surprise against the reigning Super Bowl champs. He showed a lot of poise, a lot of confidence, almost won that game, took it to overtime, and then just got better from there, but the wins just weren't showing up. And I was just trying to figure out what was going on. And yet again, the Chargers blow a 16-plus lead, and they've done that 4 consecutive times. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it's not it's not Herbert's fault. I think it's the coach. I want to give a shout out to our friend John Abood. Went to college with us. He said this after the Chargers lost to the Patriots in 2018. And he said, your problem isn't the players, it's the coach, Anthony Lynn. And I texted him after that game on Sunday and I said, I think you got it right on the money. I think Anthony Lynn's got to go. And
I said that earlier. I said like a few weeks ago, right?
I think Jonathan said that too. I mean, the play calling while they were up by 21 was so dumb. They were throwing huge deep balls to people, which is unnecessary. And it was either deep ball or run the ball. Deep ball, run the ball. There was no curl routes or no slants. Like, the play calling was just horrific. And it finally just occurred to me, like, it's Anthony Lynn, and his play calling is mainly run based, and then a huge play action to throw deep. And, we got Keenan Allen, we got Mike Williams. Those are some deep threats wide receiver wise, but like, you can't do that against the Chiefs. You can't do that against like a Steelers team. So it's just pointless to do. But back to the rookie case, I think in the end it will be Burrow. I think statistically it will be Herbert. But in the end, the Bengals are on track to surprise some people. I think they could have just over 5 wins this season. It's been taking a long time to get everything clicking, but Boyd is legit and T. Higgins is legit. I don't know where Mixon's been. I mean, he was injured last game, but if they use him correctly, if they use him like they use Alvin Kamara and the Saints do, that is a amazing offense. And if they can just get that clicking, Burrow's stats will start to catch up with Herbert's. And I think Burrow will have the wins behind him to win Rookie of the Year. But both great candidates. Great candidates.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
I agree with your assessment. I agree that statistically right now it's Herbert as Rookie of the Year, but I think, and this kind of goes back to your case about the coaching, but I'm going to kind of put it on the GM letting Melvin Gordon go, because you're calling run plays and you don't have Eckler. And even when Eckler's there, he's not a between the tackles guy. So, like, how could you keep calling run plays?
Freaking Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, you don't have running back. So why are you running it like that?
I don't know.
Like, either get a running back, like swallow your pride and give Melvin Gordon some money, or sign a different running back, because now Herbert's throwing it, and I think that's why he statistically leads the race with Burrow, because he's had to throw it. He has no running back. And now you see Burrow didn't have Mixon the last 2 games, and in the last 2 games against the Browns and Titans, Burrow has 655 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 110 passer rating. So it's like anybody, if they don't have a running back, anybody can just throw the ball. So it's like, it doesn't really show me much about Herbert. And I agree with you that by end of season, Burrow's going to win the Rookie of the Year, because he's going to get Mixon back, and they're going to win more games than the Chargers are. And I think Herbert's going to end the year with more interceptions, because he just doesn't have that run game to rely on and help him. He's got to take shots to Mike Williams, to Guyton, to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's getting 15, 20 targets a game. If they had a running back, he'd only get 10 to 15. I mean, so I'm not ready to put all the blame on Anthony Lynn. I want to see them get a running back, maybe get ETN or something, a guy that's like really good, college player. I could see him going to the Chargers. Eckler's a great pass catching running back, but you need somebody to run in between the tackles. And when you look at all these good teams, they have somebody who can run in between the tackles. James Conner for the Steelers, Derrick Henry for the Titans, Mixon, Edwards-Helaire or Bell. You always need a guy that can run, that you can rely on in the backfield, and the Chargers just don't have that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I kind of forgot about Melvin Gordon, but with Anthony Lynn, he is a running back coach. Like, that's where he came from. And that is a really good point, that Eckler really isn't an in between the tackles, north-south back. He really just goes for checkdowns and gets all of his receiving yards. And then if you take him away, Justin Jackson and Kelly are definitely not, like, Kelly is a north-south back, but he's not great. He's like a 6th round pick. Moving Melvin Gordon may not have surprised people, but like I was happy to see him go. But now that you mentioned that, I'm really starting to think that was a mistake, just because of the offense that Anthony Lynn does run. Good points. Jonathan, you have to say anything?
Yeah, I think they're going to end up giving it to Burrow at the end of the year. I agree with you guys. But I think, in my opinion, Herbert is better because he doesn't have as much pieces as Burrow. Burrow has all the pieces to be successful. I mean, you could argue maybe the line could be a little bit better. But he has AJ Green, he has Boyd, he has Higgins, then he has Mixon. I mean,
we
he has
don't
all the
say
pieces
AJ
to be...
Green in this podcast anymore.
What did you say? AJ Green's name?
Yeah.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
All right.
No, but if you think about it, Keenan Allen, if you look at their they look at their top receiver, at Keenan Allen versus Boyd, Keenan Allen's better. If you look at their second receiver, Higgins or Mike Williams, Higgins is a rookie. I'd say maybe the edge to Higgins, but yeah, it is close. Tight end, Hunter Henry. Does anybody know who the Bengals tight end is? I mean, it's Drew Sample, but
Sample's been good though.
He hasn't shown up. I mean, Henry is involved, and then running backs. Eckler versus Mixon is pretty close, but they're both injured. So it's like,
Yeah, but I think he's had Mixon more in the season.
Yeah.
And the thing about Eckler, yes, I agree. You don't have a back that can, run in between the lines. But if you have a back that you can always check down to, then defenses are going to have to adjust. And that means they can't, blitz every play because, Eckler is going to be open, right? So in that case, it's like a chess match. They give it to Eckler. He has more space to run. So having Eckler in would definitely change the scenario right now. And if Eckler was in and he wasn't injured, we'd definitely be talking about Herbert being the rookie of the year, in my opinion. So I think they're going to give it to Burrow because, it's a great story brand. It came from LSU, they won the championship. He has probably the most wins as a rookie in terms of the starting quarterback. That started all season. I'm not talking about Tua, but so they're going to give it to Burrow. But I would have major respect for Herbert. I just think that Eckler has to come back, and we have to evaluate the rookies a little bit more. But they're going to end up giving to Burrow no matter what. It's a great storyline.
And just to add, I've been bullish on Burrow since the start of the season. I like the guy. Like I think he's a good quarterback. Herbert's been a really pleasant surprise though. And like we said, it's not a statistical thing when it comes to these kind of decisions. There's a lot of other elements, but seeing the story of Herbert coming onto the scene and first game didn't know he's going to play until 10 minutes before against the Chiefs, goes to overtime and they lose. But the fact that Chiefs were running undefeated at that point, still it got that close with a team that a lot of people thought was basically unbeatable, and it got that close with the Chargers. And you're putting in this quarterback who's a rookie, didn't even know he was going to start until moments before. That's a cool story too. And statistically, they are so similar. It's easy, I think arguably, yeah. Herbert is better in terms of more touchdowns, same amount of interceptions, and more rushing yards, and 2 more rushing touchdowns too. So pound for pound right now, mid-season, Herbert's better statistically, but it's not just that. I'd also look at the schedules. They both sets of teams, Bengals and Chargers. Probably the Chargers have played more competitive teams, but they've had tough schedules. Both teams have lost, like the games they have lost. I mean, the Bengals lost 27-3 to the Ravens, right? Every other game was within about a touchdown, and that's the same thing for the Chargers. Chargers every game. Now they've won 2 games as well, so the same number of wins for each team as well. But their game with the Chargers, each game has been. I'm looking at the stats, sorry, but each one's been about a touchdown, within a touchdown as well. So it's such a parallel between the two. Right now, I give it to Herbert because he started later, and he's almost caught up statistically. So you give him that, and the fact that it's been that close since he's been in. I mean, if it keeps up, and if there's this neck and neck for a while, I think it goes to one of them. Although there are some running backs that rookie running backs that we could talk about, but between those 2 guys, I'd give it right now to Herbert. But I like both of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the league's looking to be in good hands with Herbert and Burrow so far, and we'll see how Tua does later in the season. We want to end off, as we normally do, with our games of the week. First one being the Buccaneers versus the Saints. Could be for the lead in the division. The Bucs are coming off a close win against the Giants, and the Saints, I forget, who are they playing?
they played the Bears and they won in overtime last week.
Yeah, so another close one. Both coming off close wins. I'm gonna start this one. I haven't given this one too much thought. I wanted to do it on the fly. I wanted to do it live and see what my initial thoughts were. My initial thoughts: if Michael Thomas doesn't play, I'm going against the Saints. I'm taking the Buccaneers. I'm taking Brady. I'm taking Gronk. Antonio Brown is going to be the X factor. Antonio Brown is going to be the X factor. Buccaneers win against the Saints.
Yep, I agree. Same thing. Antonio Brown's the X factor in this one. If he plays, he's going to get the practice time this week. I think he's going to be targeted at least 10 times, and I think they're going to come out with a win at home against the Saints and stay atop the division.
I agree with those opinions. I agree that Bucks will win. And I definitely agree that Antonio Brown is the X factor. But I just want to say that Tom Brady has a bad taste in his mouth from a previous meeting. And he's going to come to this game with full force because he knows if he loses to Drew Brees twice, people are going to give him crap for that. He knows that. So he's going to do everything in his power to win this game. And I think Antonio Brown's definitely going to play a factor in that.
Yeah.
We have a clean sweep, Caleb.
If I agree,
Yeah.
well, I have to say between the Bucks and the Saints, I'll have to go with the Bucks.
Wow.
Yeah,
This is gonna be the first time this season.
So we're in it together, boys. We're either all gonna get the clean one or
No bets this time.
the reason why I mean the only caveat would be the Bucks, like I said earlier, showed chinks in the armor, and the Saints attacked the points that the Giants did. And especially Michael Thomas, like that's something. But with Antonio Brown, with the way Brady has been playing, I got to give it to the Bucks. I mean, I've been a little bearish on them. I've doubted them for a while, and it was closer than it should have been with the Giants. But they're starting to show, they're winning games, and you can't argue with that. So making an interesting comparison with Bill Belichick and the Patriots, what's going on over there? Maybe no one knew at the start of the season. So we'll see how they're doing. I'm giving some of the Bucks.
Fantastic. Lastly, the Colts versus the Ravens. We talked a lot about the Ravens and their disappointing play against the Steelers, and the Colts are coming off a win against the Lions. I'm taking the Colts. I said earlier in this podcast, I've lost all faith in the Ravens. No way am I picking them for a third straight time. I've learned my lesson.
I would have laughed
the
so hard.
Ravens. The defense for the Colts is why I'm leaning towards them. And also, Philip Rivers played really well, even though it was against the Lions. He played really, really well. If he can play like that and the offense can keep up with the defense, Ravens don't stand a chance. Colts win.
I'm picking the Ravens. I think, hey, the Colts defense is pretty good, but I think, Lamar and the offense, they have something to prove now that they lost to a divisional rival. People are talking bad about them, saying that, they're not good enough, and that's getting in their head. They're going to come with full force trying to win this game. I think Ravens defense is not going to have trouble stopping Philip Rivers and the Colts. The Colts don't have that many elite receivers. They have Hilton. They have a couple others. I don't even know their names. They're not going to have trouble stopping their offense by any stretch of the imagination. Jonathan Taylor's good, but they're not going to have trouble stopping him. They're good with running defense. Passing defense is their weakness, and I don't think the Colts' passing defense is as strong as the Steelers were or the Chiefs.
You don't
I
believe
think the Ravens will win this. Philip is good, but he's not a Big Ben. Big Ben is just on another level, and he has more weapons. I mean, like I said, all those receivers on Steelers can ball. Caleb mentioned their names. They can all ball. I don't think that's the same case for the Colts. If Hilton's the go-to guy, they're going to be able to double team him or whatever. The other receivers aren't as effective. I think the Ravens are going to win this.
I'll go. I'll say I'm leaning towards the Colts on this one. The reason why is I think they have a better defense, and the Ravens are coming off some defeats that, like we said, I consider this to be one of the bigger games that the Ravens have, and this is a good team. And so if it holds true, like that narrative that they're not playing as well against good teams, I think the Colts have a serious chance if Philip Rivers stays consistent. He's playing better. He's Philip Rivers for a reason. I think that I'm giving this one to the Colts because they're more well-rounded. They have probably less of a flashy offense, but they can win games with it, especially with that defense. If they can find a way to force Lamar to throw, force him to stay in the pocket, or have to roll out, I'd give this one to the Colts.
I think this is going to be a blowout, to be honest with you.
What?
Yeah, I don't even think this game is going to be close, and I think the Ravens are going to win.
Stop. You're going with the Ravens after they've let you down twice?
The house is divided again.
I really don't think this is going to be close. I think they're going to win probably 24 to 9 or something like that. I don't think the Colts are going to score a touchdown. I think they're going to with 3 field goals. Why?
Yeah. What? Where do you see this happening?
Because I saw this game already, but that's
Hang on. That joke was so good, my
Yeah, you
camera
made-
broke.
I didn't even get to see I didn't get to
Hey.
see your reaction.
Oh, it's so sad.
Can you redo it?
I was like, ah, ha, 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 because I don't believe you.
So I'm betting 24-9, and I've seen this game before, so it's easy pick for me. And that's about it.
Your powers
Okay.
only work in fantasy. That's it.
Okay, let's see
We'll,
about
we'll,
that.
we'll see. We'll see. Divided. The dorm debate is divided again. So we had
But I would
peace for the
say
first time.
there's a lot of good games this week. Like another game we
Yeah.
could have picked, the Seahawks and the Bills. That's a close game.
Mhm.
Ooh, that'll be fun to watch.
The Steelers and the Cowboys. That's gonna be a nail biter. The Giants and the football team, 1-7 and 2-5. That has big division implications right there.
I'll be on the edge of my seat. I actually probably will. I probably will because I'm an Eagles fan.
But are we gonna pick the other game, or that was just those two?
Right.
Well, if you guys want, we had the Bears versus Titans, but we figured.
I'm always down to pick the Bears.
Yeah, right.
Let's do a rapid fire here.
Okay, quick,
Titans.
less than 1 minute. Titans, Jonathan.
Oh, me?
Oh,
I'm gonna be bold. I'm going with the Bears this game. The Titans are on a 2-game losing streak. They lost to the Bengals last week. After they lost to the Bengals last week, I was like, I gotta take a step back. I don't think this team is as good as I thought they were. I think if the key to the Bears winning is they have to, target Allen Robinson more.
Yeah, they really
target him more.
Yeah, they need to target him like every other throw. They're not giving it to him enough.
Yeah. I think they had a pretty good game against the Saints. It was a really close game, went to overtime. If they can play similar to that, I think the Titans will struggle to beat them. So I'm picking the Bears to win.
I will say I'm going with the Bears. I like the Bears. I've made that clear. I'm biased because I like Nick Foles as a person, as a player. There's been argument about, so I'll keep it on a minute, but there's been argument about Trubisky or Foles. I think they did the right thing with Foles. They could say he lost more, but he's played against tougher teams and also won against tougher teams like Tampa, like Carolina. I think he's the guy. He throws picks, but that's because Foles' style of play is an offensive. He'll threaten you on the deep throw every time if he has the chance. Now, take it or leave it. But as bad as people have said the coaching has been for the Bears, and there was some legitimate, especially in last week's game, there were some questionable thoughts. I didn't think Foles was the problem. There was some coaching problems. That O-line does not give Foles a lot of time either. But I mean, I believe in Nick Foles. I think having him there is a steady rock to elevate the other players. They got to target Robinson more. And I'm just saying the Tennessee losing weird games. I haven't watched enough of their game, but I mean, like Jonathan, you said, I'm like starting to put question marks. Why are they losing these games? They probably should be winning. So I'm gonna give the Bears this one.
Bears, but Derrick Henry will have 100 yards and a touchdown and get me the win in fantasy, but they will lose. I like the Bears. I've liked them for a while. They're close, man. They're freaking close. They should have beat the freaking Saints. They were freaking close, man.
That was a tough one.
Unbelievable, man. But yeah, they're very, 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 very close. David Montgomery's got to start playing well, and Nick Foles. I mean, Super Bowl champion. Come on, you can't go against Nick Foles.
Can't forget it.
You can't forget it. Super Bowl champion, beat Tom Brady twice. All right.
Anybody who hasn't watched our podcast, for anybody who hasn't seen our podcasts, or you're new here, and I encourage you to go back to our very first episode when I predicted that Nick Foles would reemerge into this league. And that was back in October of 2018. And that was the year that Wentz tore his ACL, Foles came in, and I took a lot of heat on that podcast for picking Foles. I know a lot of people were laughing in my face that day. So I encourage everybody to go back, and that was a very fun podcast because it was our first one. And I would fast forward or just watch the whole thing. But if you can find that the part where I say
2017.
Nick Foles, then that would just be fun. That's always fun to listen to.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I like him. I thought he should come back into the league, but just with the Bears, he's a quarterback that likes to throw the ball, and the Bears aren't an offense to do that.
Yeah. Well, if you made it this far, I want you to put in the comments, ask me about the timestamp of that first video because I'll give it to you if you made it this far. But yeah, we went way too far on this podcast. My freaking camera died. That's how you know,
Oh,
that's a sign that we went way too long on this.
so it really means a lot if they're still here.
Yeah, I mean, that's all right though. We got a lot in, and it's just kind of more of a laid back, chill podcast in this heated battle of election week.
Hopefully a distraction from the
Yeah, it
from the
was good
real
to just
world.
relax and talk about sports, which doesn't mean a whole lot. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed, leave a like, comment down below what your favorite part was. And if you haven't already, go over to our TikTok and our Instagram at Dorm Debate Podcast. Throw us a follow on both. We got fantasy football content coming on TikTok and Instagram. So make sure you go follow there. My voice is literally gone. So we will see you guys in week 10 of the NFL season. Take care.